Welcome to Live, Let, Thrive, a podcast about the Airbnb life, the share economy, and everything in between. Here are your hosts, Myka and Steve.
Hello, hello, hello.
And welcome back to another exciting episode
of Live,
Let,
Thrive. What is up, Myka, man?
Good, Stevie Stacks, man. How you doing on this beautiful Wednesday?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. It was a beautiful day playing outside with the girls. I love that, I love the freedom this kind of thing gives us. And having some good, so many storms and calms and storms in this industry. And so you just got to stick with it, right, Myka?
Yes, sir. Just got to keep on going, man. Got to keep on going.
But this is episode 279 of your favorite short-term, mid-term, long-term rental podcast in the world. Coming at you from Fort Worth and Dallas, Fort Worth and Arlington, Texas, Myka. We do have places in Dallas. We have places in Fort Worth, Houston, all over, Myka. So we're coming at you from all over the world, but, from Fort Worth and Arlington.
We in the DF dub, baby. The DF dub. Third largest metroplex in America.
That's big. Oh, we have a special guest, and she's going to carry the show for us today. Miss Pam Holt. How you doing, Pam?
I'm doing well.
All right. Let me read a little bio, before we go totally off the rails on this show. So Pam Holt is an Airbnb enthusiast, rising to the heights of superhost and premier host on VRBO. She is a seasoned attorney, real estate broker, and 2 times international best-selling co-author of Hospitable Hosts and Reputation Driven. Her journey in modern home sharing has been nothing short of extraordinary, with monthly earnings soaring over $20,000 while hosting guests in her primary residence. She and her daughters embark on incredible adventures around the world, and guests foot the bill. I love that. Her true passion lies in empowering women to leverage the income potential of the unused space in their homes. She leads a membership community of dynamic women who learn to leverage their homes to obtain financial freedom and lifestyle freedom. Very important. Welcome to the show, Pam. How you doing?
Thanks. I'm good. That sounded really good.
That was a mouthful. Yeah, I'm getting older, so I probably can't do it off my phone for very much longer. I'm gonna have to get some print them out or something. It's getting a little small.
That's okay.
Letters.
That's okay.
So we have a ton of questions for each of you. We're happy that you're joining us, and you say you've been a long time listener. That means a lot. That's pretty cool. And so how did you get your start in real estate, first of all?
Okay, so now this is back in the day, right? I went to college. I thought I was going to be an architect until I walked into the first day of drafting, and I was like, I can't do this. This is, I was the only woman in the class. Everybody, all the guys had like 4 years in high school of drafting, and I had only had this one little, mini course. It was so over my head that I didn't, it was awful. So anyway, I finished that degree in design. And so as I tell you the story, it's weird because I've got all these little pieces that I never could really figure out what to do with them until, so that's the end of the story. So I got my degree, and I knew I liked architecture. And so I decided to become a realtor because I was like, okay, I'm going to start flipping. I'm going to get some raggedy. Then there's a lot of raggedy stuff because I live in Chicago, and I'm going to flip it all. So I've started doing that and worked for a couple of different brokerage offices in Chicago until I ran into this shady kind of managing broker. I was like, no, you're going to get me sued, and I'm not having it. So I went to law school, and I was like, you're not ever going to be able to put me in a situation that I can't, see all the angles from and protect myself and protect my clients. So did that and kept flipping houses, kept servicing buyers and sellers, made my way around almost all of the big brokerage houses in Chicago. I managed offices. I had my own office. And I made a whole career out of doing that in central Chicago. And then one day I had a friend, I was going out of town, and a friend of mine was like, girl, you should put your house on Airbnb. while you're gone. And I was like, that is ridiculous. I am not going to do that. I just was like, what are you saying? You know, I just have a regular house, you know, who's just going to want to stay in my regular house? I got 2 kids and a dog. Who wants to stay here? But, you know, I was like, what is the downside of me trying it? Right. So I gave it a try. I got it together a little bit. And the day we were leaving, my first guest came, and I was like, okay, I might be able to do this. And so I thought I was going to be overseas for like a week. And, you know, as I was there, I started getting more and more interest and inquiries and bookings. And we ended up staying for 3 weeks, and we went to 3 different countries. And I was like, okay, this is not so bad. I might like this. And so that was July. And then by the end of that year, my house had earned like 50 grand. And mind you, I can only rent my house. I live at my house, right? So, and I rent the whole thing. So I can only do that when my kids are on break from school, right? So this is summer, a little bit at Thanksgiving, a little bit of Christmas, not very much. So the next year, I did a whole full year of hosting during their breaks and made 100 grand. And I was like, okay, all right, we got something here. And since then, I host guests in my home, and my kids and I travel the world. And it has been fantastic. I think I'm almost retired as a real estate person, as a broker, because hosting is just better, frankly. It's better. It's better to travel the world and have somebody else pay for it than it is to, work with buyers and sellers, although I love my buyers and sellers.
I love your story. And real quick, it jumps out at me is the part about Chicago. And we've heard of like strict anti-short-term rental laws and stuff. So how does that affect your house?
It's been a bit of a disaster, I have to say. It was going really, really well I did it for 7 or 8 years. And, no problems, no issues. I have a really high nightly rate. And so I don't run into kind of the issues that a lot of people might have if they have lower price spaces. My clientele, my avatar is business travelers, which I didn't see that coming. I didn't realize it was going to be business travelers. I live a block from the lakefront, so I thought I was going to have families coming to go to the beach. But I never thought through the idea that nobody comes to Chicago to go to the beach. I mean, you go to Florida, you go somewhere else, you don't come to Chicago. So it didn't occur to me that I live walking distance from the largest convention center in the Midwest. And so I get people coming for conventions, trade shows, conferences. I get unrelated colleagues who come and stay and spend that corporate money. And it's been great. To answer your question, I'm going along 7 years. It's time for me to renew my license. And I get a notice from the city that I have to come down for a hearing. And I'm like, a hearing? What are you talking about? And it turns out I live in a planned development, which means that the entire neighborhood kind of came up all at once. They demolished the original housing that was here. Everything came up at one time. It's a planned unit. And Chicago doesn't allow, and it's so random. Chicago doesn't allow hosting in those spaces. And so I quickly pivoted, and I'm a midterm rental host now because at 28 days or more in Chicago, you're not short-term rental.
Right.
The issue for me, though, is because I live here, I'm now limited to the summers when my kids have more than 28 days out, or sometimes some holiday, Christmas holiday stays as well. But, my house will make 20 grand in a month. So, I'll take the summers, and picked up a few arbitrage units and a few other things that I'm still in business, just not the way it started.
So what exactly are the laws up there? I think I've heard of them, but so are you only allowed to do 28 plus days, or how does that work?
I am in my dwelling, but it varies depending on the kind of dwelling you have. So the property type, it varies depending on where your home or where your property is located. Like I said, zoning doesn't allow me to host. So it's not the short-term rental laws. Well, it kind of is, but it's the zoning that I couldn't overcome. I'd have to go to the city council and have them change the zoning, which wasn't going to happen. So, the fact is Chicago is trying to get rid of the short-term rentals. There's really no other way you can look at it. And so, they are systematically going through, and every time someone goes to renew, they're now evaluated in a way that they weren't before. So the scrutiny is really quite severe these days. And there's only a handful of people that can pass the restrictions.
Is it because they're blaming the housing shortage on short-term rentals, or what do you think?
I think it's more the crime, the perceived crime that happens. And I'm always telling people, I'm like, the media sensationalizes the few incidences that ever happen in a short-term rental scenario. And they make it into, like, this is what's happening in everybody's place, and everybody's having a party, and everybody's, having some kind of disturbance. But, for my situation, I never did one-night rentals. I never even did weekends. My folks come during the week because it's the work week. And so, I never had any issues. And, I went to court a couple of different times, and, I told my story, and it was a sad story. And like, I've replaced my income with this. I've made a career out of this now because you all told me it was okay, because you kept renewing my registration, right? So I'm thinking I'm okay. And so I tried to build an argument around the fact that they couldn't just kind of yank it out from under me, but they yanked it out from under me anyway. So you can't fight City Hall. Like, literally, you can't fight City Hall.
I guess my thing. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Steve.
Okay, so my thing was, I love how, Airbnb or short-term rentals allows someone to do what you were doing. You were able to rent your house out, sustain a nice lifestyle and go travel, right? And in that sense, you would go probably rent someone else's Airbnb or short-term rental, And what I thought was powerful about this whole thing and what it could morph into is that one day everybody would have the ability to do that. We could all hop around each other's houses all over the planet, and then we'd save money or make money. Or right now to go leave somewhere for a month or even a couple weeks is impossible for most people to travel. You know what I'm saying? Because it costs so much.
Right.
But imagine how that would skyrocket if if everybody had the ability to rent out their house for a few weeks or a month or a few months, it would just help. I think it would be great. It would kind of like how Turo help people make money with their cars. I thought that's what it would eventually morph into, but the cities don't see it that way.
What really got me was, the fact that the city is telling me what I can do inside my house. It's not like I put a sign out on the front porch. My guests are inside, and I am choosing to allow that to happen. And since I pay my taxes and, I'm a good citizen, I should be able to do that. Unless I'm having problems, unless I'm disturbing my neighbors, unless, somehow it's an issue, which it never was. So, I have some philosophical issues about it, because it does allow a lot of people to stay in their homes, and where they might not be able to do that. And especially, I work with a lot of women. So I work with women, and a lot of them are, considering at some point retiring. A lot of times they're empty nesters, or becoming empty nesters. And they want to stay in their homes, but or they want to retire sooner, or they want to retire with a bigger, nest egg. And hosting in their homes is just a really natural. People have been having boarders and hosting since the beginning of time, but now the city gets to tell you who can do it and who can't. I'm not for that.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know where the hosting's going, because, more and more laws are coming about. They just banned it in Dallas, and then Dallas also just announced that they're building a second Ritz-Carlton. So it's like, the hotels are kind of
But
in
that's
on it a
just
little
it.
bit.
That's just
So
it. There are a lot of conventions that come to Chicago, and there are a lot of hotels. And Airbnb and the whole short-term rental market was eating away at that hotel money. And honestly, I think that has a lot to do with it. The city has to, they got to earn their money off of that, the revenue and all that goes along with the hotels. And, they're not really thinking about those of us who would like to go to Europe for the summer or whatever. They're like, no, I gotta have, I gotta make sure whatever the Sheraton is, fully booked, because that's good for business. It's good for the city.
yeah. And I'm happy you brought that up, because that's one thing me and Steve haven't really talked about in this podcast, is how much conventions mean to cities and how much hotels make off that. Because I was at a Tony Robbins event this weekend, 14,000 people came to town. Half the people, and it's at the convention center that's connected to the Omni Hotel. So they have to make their money. But the group that who came down here with me, they of course did what? They stayed at an Airbnb because it was a group, which that Airbnb will probably be banned next month, unfortunately. So yeah, it's interesting how it's all playing out. But I think I think it'll be allowed to where people can still make money. We just have to get creative, like you did with the midterms. I love how you did that.
I couldn't let them, I wasn't going to let them put me out of business. Not in my own house. Now, it's one thing if you want to talk about, I don't know, it's kind of one thing if you talk about a place that isn't your primary residence. And so maybe that's a distinction, or maybe it's not. But in your primary residence, it just doesn't feel good to have that regulated. And I think more people ought to just be out there with, picket signs, because if it's your house, it's your house, and you get to decide what happens on the inside.
I agree.
Here's what we saw at the, so we've been through it twice already. Arlington, Texas, they banned it in pretty much like 99% of the city in short-term rental homes, right? So in a little bitty spot around the stadiums, you can do it, but they just wanted us to renovate those crack houses that were there. But anyways, that's another story altogether. So we've been through it with Arlington. We've been through it through Dallas also. They're going to ban it in 100% of residential. They're banning Airbnb, short-term rentals, whatever. Doesn't matter if you live there or don't live there, whatever. So my thing, kind of lost my train of thought. It happens every now and then. So, yeah, we've been through this a few times, and what we noticed is in these meetings that we were going to some of the meetings, right? And the ones that we could go to, the ones in the evening that we could go to, but a lot of these meetings are happening in the daytime. The people that are doing short-term rentals, most of us got jobs, right? Or we got day jobs, or we got commitments and stuff like that. But the people that could always show up was the older generation, and so they would go to all the meetings, be in the ears of all these. They knew all the city people by name, right? And so they held a lot of clout, in other words. And
but you know what? A lot of those people are the ones that are on, well, depending on who you're talking about, are on fixed income. And they really ought to be, the ones out there with the signs, because
some of them were.
Okay. Okay. I mean, that's the group that I think really has the most to lose, because what are they going to do? Get a second job? I mean, it's a very viable stream of income or it could be for a lot of people, and to just kind of blanket, erase it without even considering maybe you go case by case, or maybe I could have been grandfathered in. Because I didn't have any, any allegations. I didn't have any, the police never came here. It was my neighbors didn't mind. Maybe that could have been an exception, but.
The cities have always been that way. Punish everybody for the crimes of a few, right? That's just how it's always been.
Yeah, but you know what? My midterm situation is just fine. I'm okay with that. Yeah, I'm not having it. I'm not letting them dictate that to me. So
you can get it rented pretty good in the summer for like 28 days or more. It's just not hard.
It's not, well, it's different. I can't charge quite as much because I was charging, $1,500 a night for my house. I can't do that times 28 or 30. That's not yet. I haven't been able to find that person yet, but I'm looking. But I do get sometimes I get people who will contact me and who'll say, I don't need 28 days. I see you're only, available for 28 days or more, but I need 10 days. And I'm like, call me. I'm like, I think that might be okay, and so that's happened a couple of times. I have gotten some longer stays. I've had a few people who I live kind of centrally located to a bunch of large hospitals. So I've had a couple of families who had a family member who came to town for a procedure, and they wanted to bring, more parts of the family to be with that relative. And the person then couldn't travel directly after their procedure. So they were here for, 3 weeks. One person was here for the 28 days. So there are situations when it happens, I'm just not able to command quite as much as I did before. But, that's okay too. That's okay, because I have just supplemented it with other units,
Oh, now I have a question. Have you expanded your portfolio outside of your home?
Yeah. Well, my family's always had a vacation rental. Off and on, we would have guests, but a lot of times it would sit empty. And I mean, this dates back to when I was a teenager, and I could never get my family completely on board with it because they're like, "Oh, it's our family home," and "Oh, our memories." And I was like, "Oh, we are leaving money on the table. This is not cool." So periodically, we'll rent that one, and I've picked up some apartments and done some arbitrage, and which everybody knows is a riskier strategy. And so I do a little bit of that, but I'm looking outside of Chicago because I'm looking outside of the US for a sort of, an expat situation, depending on what happens politically in the next little while. So I'm not opposed to setting up shop again. I mean, I as a realtor, a lot of the skills that I have as a realtor translate to setting up a rental, right? I can look at some comps and analyze them. I can stage a property. I know what the photos should look like. I know how to write the description. So a lot of those skills work. So I can pick those skills up and put them someplace else. I haven't, because my youngest daughter's got to finish up some school. But once that happens, I can take these skills anywhere, and I can replicate what I was doing here,
Mm-hmm. So you're talking about setting up units in Europe or other countries?
Yeah. If the US is going to make it so difficult, then maybe you don't want me here. I don't know. Maybe I need to go somewhere else and, figure out a different plan. So I'm giving it some real thought.
So with you being like mainly 28 days, like what's your marketing like? Where do you market your property?
I am still on Airbnb, but of course I get limited visibility because you can't search me for anything less than 28 days. But I do find people who want a shorter stay, but who will put in, I guess, flexible dates or longer dates, because they'll find me. I'm still getting inquiries for less than 28 days. But so I'm still there. It's minimal. I have toyed off and on with the idea of direct book, which is probably what I should have done from the beginning. But again, since I'm limited to the timeframes where my daughter is not in school, it's a little bit tricky. It's all a little bit tricky trying to work into those breaks that she has. But I do furnish finders, and I do the midterm situation. It's just like I said, it's tough because I'm used to $1,500 a night, and over 30, that's a lot of money. I wouldn't do it, but
So you said you're using Furnish Finder and you toyed with Airbnb for 28 plus days. Okay, so have you got into like maybe the insurance housing who can pay a little bit more?
I have thought about that, and I've done. I had a couple of inquiries from that, but for the most part, during the last couple of years, my daughter's in high school. I'm shifting now to teaching, and I think that's really kind of where all of my skills come together. I'm not ruling this out because I can't leave that money on the table, but I want to build a scenario where teaching others, especially women, to do what I've done becomes the main source of my income. I've always felt I've always been like, no, there's some way I can be more useful to a community than, kind of selling houses one-off, right? Because in Chicago, if you're a realtor, you have to accompany every buyer to every single house you see. And even if you have a vacant house, if you're the listing agent, you have to show that property. And so you are limited to how many transactions you can handle based on that number of hours in the day. So I was always wanting something more. And I think teaching is gonna kind of let me explore, all the different things that I've done and help people and, tell the city that.
Can you go into that for a second? Are you saying if you're a listing agent in Chicago, you have to be the one to show the house?
Right.
Wow.
Why do you make these stupid rules for? I don't understand.
It's really restrictive. I mean, a lot of it has to do with the downtown condo buildings. They don't want people kind of wandering around in the condo buildings. But it's crazy because there's a listing agent and there's a buyer's agent. So there's two agents and the buyer conceivably showing a vacant property. Like, I'm like, I think you could look around and kind of figure this one out, without me here,
Still the light bulbs.
It's starting to change a little bit, but it's been really a ridiculous situation. And you can't, and I see like in the suburbs, people are like, I'll show my properties. Are you kidding? Here's the lockbox. And in downtown, we can't do that. So.
Change is slow sometimes. I mean, there's places where they still make you an attendant has to pump your gas for you. There's only one state left here, but like go to Mexico or places in Europe, they have to do it for you. You know what I'm saying? Or not all the countries, but just old laws or old rules are hard to die sometimes, right?
Let me tell you, when I started selling real estate in Chicago, I don't know what you know about Chicago, but it was, and it still is, a pretty segregated place to be. And back in the day when I first started, the MLS there was a South Side MLS and there was a North Side MLS.
Know what that means in Chicago? Go ahead.
Right. And if you lived on the South Side and had clients who wanted to see a North Side property, you better have a friend who worked on the North Side because you had no access to those properties. And it literally wasn't until like 89, 90, early 90s before the MLS merged into one MLS so that, people from the South Side could have access to North Side properties. I mean, I know that was a while ago, but not as long ago as it should have been, that was crazy.
Funny thing is, my first time in Chicago was about 3 to 4 years ago. And the North Side and South Side, you can definitely tell the difference in Chicago real quick.
Yeah.
My uncle, he was like, because we and my wife, we went walking and we went to see the Michael Jordan statue. And then we went up to Navy Pier and all that.
Okay.
We went north of that. And then we told him we went south. He was like, it's a big difference. I was like, you can tell real quick once you're on the north side and the south side.
Yes. It's very, to this day, it's still very different. The resources are very different. Just everything, property values, is all still very different. It's starting to change, but I don't know, not in every neighborhood. It really is kind of neighborhood by neighborhood, and it's moving out from kind of the core. So if you live out here, you got a long ways to wait for it to get there, if ever. So at one time I was the only African-American real estate agent who sold properties downtown and on the North Side. So I'm like, really?
Was that a good thing though? I mean, as for business?
No, it was not. It wasn't a good thing for me because I just didn't want to be the only anything. I didn't want to be the only woman walking in that drafting class. I didn't want to be the only one, right? And I got stairs and, just whatever. It's not like it was 100 years ago. I mean, it was a minute ago, but it wasn't, 1873 or something. It was.
I'm seeing a theme here. You're a natural pioneer. By default.
But maybe a little unwillingly. I'm just not going to. I just won't put up with just anything. You can't just tell me anything and not have it make sense and have me go along with it. You got to come up with some serious, argument for me to buy something as crazy as any of that. And nobody had an argument. I mean, there was literally, like in Chicago, there was a dividing line, a street that Northside agents did not sell beyond. Really? Because there's no actual physical barrier there. It's just a street. But everybody knew it was Congress. No, it's Congress. Mm-hmm. Congress is an east-west street, and so everything.
Yeah, north of that, south of that. Okay, got you.
and there was no crossover. There was just me occasionally crossing over, but a lot of things have changed, and and I'm hopeful. But talk about slow change.
That's good though. I think Steve's right. You're a pioneer, man. You're the only one allowed to cross Congress, man. People see you on the other side, they're like, "Hey, Pam allowed over there, man."
Right.
Hey, come on. Hey, you want a house on the north side? Oh, you better call Pam. You're going up over there. No.
Right. But the thing is, you might not want a house on the north side because you might not think that was a safe thing, or it's just taken a long time to make these small changes. And
it reminds me of a story because do you know of a band called Rage Against the Machine? I don't know. It's a rock and roll band.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Tom Morello, guitar player, he grew up in Chicago, and his dad is African. His mom, white, and she traveled around, had a baby with an African man, and then when they came back to the States, without him, she was looking for a place to stay in Chicago, oddly enough. And she said that she had to go around as a white lady. She had to go around to this one apartment complex or whatever and talk to all the neighbors and talk to the people that ran the place and introduce herself and introduce her son. And it's so funny how this is how he said it. He goes, yes, he's black, because they didn't allow them to live in this complex or whatever, but he's African black, so he's like kind of exotic, so that she had to try to sell it to the community to let her live there with her son. And I was like, Chicago, progressive Chicago, that doesn't make sense. And so
I've heard that exotic thing before. That's that is code right there.
Yes, it is.
So you can't put that one past me either. But yeah, it was like that. It is like that. And that is actually why, getting back to the short-term rental scenarios, there are almost no short-term rentals left on the south side, but there's still some on the north side, around Wrigley Field and some of those other, popular areas. I live on the south side, and I know this because I did the research when I had to go to court. Because I was like, well, hey, wait a minute, I can't be the only one that, can't do this when all these other listings still exist. And I know that they have, there's a whole list of different criteria. And I know they weren't qualifying for the criteria. My only, fault was the zoning situation that dated back so far. And I know it was about, like boarding houses, like they didn't want boarding houses, the old, ones from the 40s or whatever, the flop houses, right? I'm like, oh, it's $1,500 a night. It's not a flop house, it's. So yeah, it's a bunch of old laws. It's a bunch of old thinking, and it's really unfortunate because it's costing people, a viable livelihood, and that's messed up.
You're making me think of something here. Steve touched on it a little bit earlier, but you're talking about like how there's only a few left on the south side. See, because basically me and Steve were at the city council when they banged the gavel on what they were going to do in Arlington. And so when they came out with the law saying, hey, well, we're just going to allow it in the entertainment district. That's when I looked at Steve and I said, they're trying to gentrify it. And it made perfect sense, because basically to build the Cowboy Stadium, they basically tore down, pushed out, lower income people. So they pushed them out so they could build that stadium. But they built the stadium up, got everything kind of nice around it, but they needed to expand out. So they let you do Airbnb in that area. So basically, so you can gentrify the area, which they're effectively doing right now. So that kind of makes me, it sounds like it's kind of redlining in Chicago a little bit. That's what it is. Okay, so
it's redlining.
Yeah. So my question is this then, like, when you're in those city council meetings, I know you're all about women empowerment. Are there many African Americans in those meetings?
No. No. No.
See, and that goes back to what Steve's point. Like, when you ain't showing up, you give the people power. Like the old people sitting up in there, they're complaining, but they get the ear. It's 100 of them. So,
yeah, but it's also about exposure and not knowing to show up, not knowing you could host guests in your home and charge them $1,500, a night. It is, and which is why I'm trying to go door to door and tell people, you can do this and you can earn income doing this. And people have been doing it forever. And, particularly, if you look back at African-American history and you see, and about the Green Book and about the migration up from the South, African-American people didn't have a choice, that they had to stay with other people in their homes. And so, of course, this dates back way, way, way before that. But, so for the South, I say this, for the South Side residents, I don't know that everybody's seeing it as a six-figure, potentially, money-making situation. They just haven't seen it. I didn't know. I was like, oh no, nobody can come and stay in my house. Are you kidding? So, you don't know till you know.
Now, it is funny when you say that, because it reminds me of going to one of those city hall meetings, whatever, city council meetings. And they had us divided at the meetings. On the right side, it was all the older, angry, mostly white citizens that didn't want it.
Afraid. They were afraid.
Afraid. And then they did this thing, most our side was all mixed up. I had all the races that we were doing this, Mexican, Black, Asian, all kinds, we were all mixed up, white even, younger ones. But we were all, it was such a, a clear line that was there. But anyways, when we started to speak, people got up to speak. There was, and Myka was there. There was this one old, I'll say redneck looking, redneck dude.
What he was.
And he literally got up there and said, it's just, they're bringing these people to our neighborhoods that are all different kinds of nationalities. And I couldn't believe what he was like, just
it's
being
fear.
Blatantly racist.
It's fear, and it's, I don't know, fear in real estate. They have a long history, but they shouldn't. But you're not going to get me to go down that road too much further.
That's what this show is for.
You don't want to hear all what I got to say about this, but
no, we do.
Well, me and Steve started the show, baby.
I'm just
short-term rentals from the other side.
I'm just saying, redlining is real. It was real. It's still real.
For people that don't know of our listeners, can you explain what redlining is?
So redlining is literally as though the city founders or whatever took a red line around the map and decided this neighborhood was going to be for this population of people. And if you were a realtor and you wanted to show people in another area, you couldn't, because I'll tell you how deep it went. Chicago used to have covenants in the deed that didn't allow the transfer of the deed unless it was from a white person to a white person. Wow. So there were, so as a result, everybody coming up from the South during the migration ended up in one of two areas, and that's it. And actually, it's pretty much stayed that way until, I would say, the last 10 years, where it started to change. Hyde Park, which is where the University of Chicago is, and the Obama's home and all that, is starting to be very diverse. And the South Loop, which is just south of downtown, is also a diverse part of the town. But further south, On the South Side, it's not the case. In the West Side at all. So, you know,
and
it's been hard to watch.
Yeah. And to take it a step further, that's kind of the reason why I kind of got into real estate, due to like redlining practices, because that's how a huge wealth transfer in America didn't go to the African Americans, because they could basically redline a area on the map. And like, let's say if you were Black and you wanted to buy there, because they wouldn't say, oh, you Black, you can't buy. Sometimes they would just straight up say the insurance companies just wouldn't insure the house, so you can't get a mortgage on it.
They wouldn't give you a loan. Yeah, you couldn't get a loan. So, yeah. How could you buy it for cash? You're coming up from the South just to start over. So now you're stuck in a rental scenario in a neighborhood that is void of resources. And it's just going to continue to, depreciate and be devalued. And now you have a ghetto, so it's a tough reality. How about that?
I'm happy you came on, because I didn't even think Chicago, like how Steve said, I didn't even think Chicago. I mean, I noticed the difference between the North and the South, but like when you start going like into like the courtrooms and things of that nature, and like when it's time for city council meetings, it's very interesting how that dynamic is played out. So one question I do have, because you rent. Man, you're renting for $3,500 a night. So $1,500.
No. Yes. I wish it was $3,500 a night. I'd break the law for that.
So, like, what strategies do you create? Like, what kind of experience or unique experience do you create for your guests? Because $1,500 a night, that ain't no. It's a big chunk.
No. I'm surprised, and I was so surprised by it that when that first trip that I took, I had it at $500 a night. And I was like, oh, nobody's coming here for $500 a night. And so it was just over the first couple of years that I built confidence to raise the price. But nobody ever complained. Nobody ever asked me to negotiate my rate. They just didn't. And it's largely because of the avatar. It's because it's these corporate people, with corporate money. And, they expect to pay that kind of money in a hotel. And so it doesn't, they don't even blink to do a home where everybody can come and gather after the conference and, hang out and debrief and have a kitchen and, parking and everything. So, it was never a problem raising the price. What I did do once I realized the families weren't coming, I bought all these, blow up beach toys and all this stuff for the family I thought that was coming that didn't. I did start to tweak my amenities to better cater to who was actually coming, which were business travelers. So for instance, I had one of my bedrooms had twin beds, because I'm like, oh, you bring your kids, they got twin beds. Well, unrelated colleagues do not want to share a room like that. So, right. So I pulled it out, put it in the queen bed, everything was good. And it were little tweaks like that, I think sort of enhanced the experience. And literally I am walking distance from that center. So you don't have to have a rental car, you don't have to, I don't know, if you don't have to Uber, you don't have to do anything. You just walk to the conference and come back. So location has a lot to do with my success, but I wrote my description to appeal to, business travelers. Yeah, I got high-speed internet. Yeah, I have an office. Yeah, it's got a printer. Yeah, you could be totally set up as a business traveler in my home, and then also have the space to gather and hang out and cook. I'll tell you, business travelers do not cook. They make frozen pizzas and they drink a lot of liquor and they're not here to cook. So I never have, like, the wear and tear on the house is really, really low because they're gone all day at the conference and they're really just kind of sleeping here and drinking a lot of beer. They drink a lot of beer, but that's it. And that works for me because I don't have, I had a couple of families come in now and then, and they're making, big, huge meals. And I come back and the kitchen's all, a mess. I'm like, where are my business travelers? bring them back.
I'm the same way. I do not like what is it called? The leisure travelers, man. The business travelers, I love them. Leisure travelers, they had a headache and leave a mess. Always want
Oh,
something extra. You're like, dang, carry up and leave. No,
They'll
I'm
cook,
joking.
they'll cook some curry fish up in your place.
oh, I'm telling you, the kitchen I would just be like, oh, what's happened here? And when
Um,
the business travelers are here, all I gotta do is, empty the garbage with all the beer and the, pizza boxes. So that's a lot easier.
one thing that's like, I mean, you just went over it real quickly, but it's a big tip, and it doesn't seem like a big tip, but it is. But a printer, I never even thought about it, putting printers at my places. That's a big thing. People want to go go to whatever business thing and they print out some papers. They don't have to go to a Kinko or whatever, FedEx,
Right.
whatever place to print
Right.
out stuff. Print it out right there. Have extra inks there just in case.
They love that one because there's always
Wow.
some kind of brochure or some kind of signage for a booth or some kind of something that they need. And, the printer's right there. They can scan stuff. It's one of those 4-in-1, whatever. And I already had it because I use it for my business. So it was not a purchase for me, but it's a little detail that I think, it's all the little details, right, that make the difference.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that was just a detail that worked out really nicely. That and all the beer glasses. I have like a collection of different kind of beer glasses, so you have an assortment of them. So it's just knowing who's coming to stay, knowing your avatar, and making sure you think like them to think about the needs that they have. Like, here's one that's funny. When I first started, I didn't because I don't blow dry my hair out and do the whole thing. So I didn't have a hair dryer because African American women travel with everything they need for their hair. They don't expect you to have anything for their hair. And so I got called out by someone who's like, I don't have, I need a hair dryer. So I got a hair dryer in every bathroom now because I get it. It's just not something I thought about because I don't use a hair dryer like that. So you got to think like your guest, not like you.
That's a fact, man. I remember we first, so. Oh, never mind. I ain't gonna say it like that.
I'm just saying. I didn't know to do that. I didn't know how critical that was. It's critical apparently.
I know, because like when me and Mahogany first started, right? Like, because African American, it is true. And me and Steve used to talk about this a lot. Like most of the time when people who book, depending on your location, some of my places were some of them are like in African American communities, right? So me and my wife, we picked them up. Most of the time people would book that look like us, right? But our places that were in a, mixed area, anybody would book, right? So we didn't know that you need to have those little things in there to catch hair from going and clogging up the toilet because we wash our hair, it stays in our hair, so we had to learn that. So we had to learn it. That's true. You have to learn and one good thing, this is the cool thing about it though. You learn your target avatar and you learn about, different cultures and how they operate, like Steve said with the curry, we didn't know until like, oh, dang, this ain't just the easiest smell to get up out of here.
Right. And I'm not mad at any of it. I just didn't know. And and now I know. So,
Yeah, for real.
It's kind of another benefit from hosting, right? I have had people from all over the world coming for these conferences and things, and I had a whole we had a whole library worth of art books, and so I got a message from one guest that they're like, I really love your library. I never called it a library, but I really love your library. I read through some of your books. You must be interesting people. You got these law books and all this stuff. And I was like, that's just the bookcase where we keep our books. I never thought of it as an amenity, but these folks did. In fact, one person came and they asked if they could take a book and leave a book in its place. And I was like, oh, we have a whole, lending library going on here. This is great, and I didn't know that was going to happen either. So
it's always the small stuff you just don't ever see coming. Like the picture, like a while ago, I had a guy book. This is a long time ago. Steve remembers this story. I took pictures of everything in the house, right? I took pictures of like the cabinet, where the spices were and all that. And this dude booked, and he was like, and this is back in the day, I think you couldn't really show your face on Airbnb or something. So basically he booked and he was like, oh yeah, man, I booked with you because I knew you were Black. You had the Lowry seasoning salt. So it's certain things that caters, you'll never know what grabs people's attentions. So it's always good to be detailed in those pictures because it's the little slightest thing, he wanted some Lowry seasoning salt apparently.
And you had it for him. So
yeah, I had it for him.
I think that's good hosting.
Yeah, I was like, I got some hot sauce too. I got it all. But yeah.
Ain't no spices in this mug.
But it's really cool because you realize that there are commonalities and there are differences in the cultures, and it's all good. It's all good.
For real.
Oh, I didn't come on here to be offensive or
No,
keeping
it real.
Yeah, this is real.
We say a lot of crazy stuff. You've been listening. We say
yes,
stuff.
yeah. So I didn't think I was gonna get in it though.
I'm pretty sure our white hosts have learned how to cater to Black people and Mexicans listening to this podcast, so we can help each other out.
I'm just saying, I sometimes I come home and there's so much hair on the floor of my bathroom. I'm like, somebody is dying or something, because like you said, our hair doesn't fall out like that so much. And I'm like, oh, do you know you are sick? Because look at all this hair. I hope you cut that out.
Nah, man, it's the truth, man. It's real. Go to a black woman hair falling out like that, boy. Somebody about to get cussed out. But nah.
Oh snap!
Oh man, where were we at?
We're talking about a lot of things. One of the things, on the subject of the Lowry's thing, that's one of my favorite ones that we talked about on the show. But I used to, early on, we started Airbnb out of our house, but I mean, we had moved out to another house, and in the previous one, we turned into an Airbnb because, Myka said, do it, man, do it. So
good.
Yeah. And so that's what got me in the game. That was like 6 or 7 years ago. It was a while back. Mm-hmm. And so, well, I put a picture of me and my family on there, Hispanic family, as the profile picture. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, most of the people that booked with us were Hispanic people, And Myka said the same phenomenon happened with him. And it's a lot of, it's not, people call, say that racism or whatever. It's just people keep it real. People feel comfortable with being around their own people, and there's no exception when someone's booking an Airbnb or a short-term rental or whatever. And some people, and we've known people that are minorities, Black or Hispanic, that'll put a picture of a white person as their profile picture.
Yeah.
It's crazy, people, claim that, it doesn't exist anymore, but it exists.
Oh, it exists. Yeah, it does.
We've tested all types of profile photos, man. It's interesting how it plays out. Very interesting.
Well, I get the question all the time. Should I, and I get this as a realtor too, should I remove my photos and my art? And my position has always been, no. I mean, this is your house. Now, you want to allow the guest or the buyer to be able to see themselves in the property, but I don't think you need to, whitewash it and make it into something that it's not. But that's just my opinion, because there are other realtors that will tell you to make it as neutral as possible. But,
that's actually a really good thing, because I actually had something that happened with mine due to that. So my mom, she used to set up my short-term rentals, but she had an art company based out of Ghana. So what happened was she had an art company based out of Ghana. So she would get all this art, the art she couldn't sell. She 3-4x this art. She was making a killing doing it. So the art she didn't sell, she was like, Mike, I just put it in your Airbnb if you need it, and I'll just put it in there. So I think nothing of it. I'm like, dude, it's free art. Go ahead, put it in there. Cool. And I was like, shoes. And I was like, if they want to buy it, I would tell them, if you want to buy it, kind of like what Steve did, you can buy it. And this is like stitched really nice African art. Nice. So I had this guest, and they were just complaining, saying everything was wrong. This is a couple years ago. And I was like, dang, man. So, you're getting on your cleaners and you're getting on everybody. My cleaner went over there and said, everything's fine. So then my handyman went over because she's saying stuff's broken. I think like a wall plate that went out. And he goes over there to fix it. And he calls him. And he's like, man, this guest, are you sure this guest is complaining about making all these complaints? I'm like, yeah, man, he's making these complaints. He's like, bro, there's nothing wrong with your house. And I'm like, you sure? He's like, I just walked it. He goes, now, one thing I will say, I don't know who this guest was, but he goes, are you sure they're not trying to sabotage you? And I'm like, why would they be doing that? He was like, well, looking at the art in here, I mean, he goes, I love it, but I'm just saying, they can probably tell who you are, like your culture, due to the art, because it was all African Ghanaian art. And I had never thought about that at the time until he brought it to my attention. And, I didn't really know. And I also have like a Kobe Bryant room in there. And she had left us a review, and there wasn't really nothing I could do about it. But when my people went over there, there was nothing wrong. But that is, wouldn't say something to consider. It's just, if that target avatar doesn't come. Yeah. If that target avatar doesn't come, then it's like, you know what I mean? That's why
you have to make a personal decision. And I personally would not change my home. But my home is, a lot of it is about our travel. So, we've been to Africa several times. So I have African prints and things, but we've also been to, I've got a mask from New Orleans. I've got pieces from, Mexico. I've got a lot of different things because it's part of our story, but I wouldn't change any of it for anyone. It's just, that's just not what I'm going to do, but
I didn't change mine. I didn't change mine. I kept it up, but I never thought about it until he brought that up. I was like, maybe that is what they're doing. But all their other guests, I mean, the property's been up for 3-4 years now, and we got the same art in there, but it's interesting.
I guess we've all seen that story online about the family who was trying to sell their house and get it appraised. And the first time they went to get it appraised, it was a Black family, and they had all their pictures up and everything, and they gave it a low number. So what they did, they changed all the pictures out, put like a white family was living there and all that stuff. Another appraiser came out and appraised it $100,000 higher.
You're right. That's real. That's happening right now. Yeah, that's real.
Yeah, man, it's wild stuff goes on. Wild stuff goes on, but knowing your target avatar is huge.
Yes.
Yeah.
You love being an agent, don't you?
It's interesting because I'm an introvert, and so I would always have to extrovert to be with clients, and so it was always, I don't know, introverts get really exhausted by having to do that. So I would have a whole full day of showings. I have to come home and just, lay down for a while. And so it's interesting that I've been doing it so long because it is so outside of my natural personality. But I enjoy helping people make smart decisions about real estate. And then that's why short-term and midterm rentals, that's smart thinking. And, I spent a whole career telling people, yeah, sell your house. I'll sell your house. No problem. Let's buy you a new house, get a bigger one, that whole thing. And now I'm like, don't sell your house. I'm like, put a short-term rental in your house. Don't, people whose parents passed away and the first thing they want to do is sell the house. I'm like, don't sell Granny's house. Make it a midterm rental. And so, that's why I can't really actively sell real estate so much anymore, because I don't want people to sell their homes. There's a better way, or at least another way that they could consider.
Love it.
That's deep, because you could make money selling their houses, but you're trying to direct them in a wealth building path. That's awesome.
You can make money doing a lot of things, and but you got to live with yourself, and I just want people to make smart decisions. I want them to open their minds to just the idea of it. Like, so many people are just like, ew, not my house, that's weird, and somebody's in my bed and this whole thing. Now, they don't think about when they go to a hotel and somebody's been in that bed 100 times more times than in your short-term rental. But I just want them to consider it. And maybe it's not for everybody. And in fact, it's not for everybody. But for those who can get past kind of the emotional aspect of it being their home, it's viable. It is a viable, low barrier to entry income potential. And I just want more people to think about it.
I agree.
That's what we're here for.
That's my soapbox. That's my speech.
I love it. I do. I think there's a lot of opportunities coming forward, and I think people should definitely be on the lookout and definitely get into it. I think there's a lot of opportunities coming.
Now, I will say that so you were you were a real estate attorney?
I am.
You are. Okay.
I am, yeah. I've been an attorney for a really long time. I don't practice law anymore. I just have the information. So, like I said, you can't get anything past me. So,
So that being said, that's why I was excited one of the reasons excited to get you on the show and ask you these things was, so we're getting into more buying owner financing and buying or seller financing and subject to. Now, what do you know about those two? I mean, you've done deals like that, subject to and owner financing, what can you tell us about those?
I'll tell you this: when I first started selling real estate, interest rates were 14%. Ooh. And every single deal I did was financed by the seller, because who was going to go to a bank and get a 14% interest rate, right, on a mortgage? So I did a lot of them, and now as rates creep up, I think it's going to come back. The problem is, people don't always feel comfortable with it, but it's a contract. And you get a solid contract. It's a very viable way. It's a viable out for the seller, and it's a viable in for the buyer. And as long as you have that contract in place, do it.
Oh.
No, I like that. And you mentioned especially because rates have gone up a lot. I've seen it more and more. I used to talk to agents, didn't even know what subject to was or how to structure. Oh, we don't do owner financing here. We don't do this one. It just because interest rate was so low for so long, especially the new ones that got in, they didn't even consider doing something like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, rates have been so good for so long, but back in the day when they weren't, that's all we did. And even if the agent doesn't know how to do it, your attorney should be able to put it together for you. So once your agent finds you that property, it's time to shift to your attorney anyway. So, don't let the agent's inexperience keep you from doing the deal,
Ooh, I like that.
Now you still, let's say, went to your attorney to put it together. You still got to close at a title company.
But that's okay.
Yeah, it's a couple grand,
Yeah.
2 or 3 grand. Okay, cool. So you've done those. That's cool. You have experience in that. And subject to. Do you know a lot about subject to?
I haven't done a lot of that. No, I've done more the traditional, just the straight up seller holds a part of a mortgage for a designated amount of time. And a lot of times back in the day, those would then get converted into traditional mortgages. But sometimes not. It depends on how long the seller is willing to hang on in the transaction. Some sellers might just be like, I'm trying to be done with this and don't want to hold it for a long time. But those are the ones I've done.
So how did you get it to staging?
Because I've seen properties who, with a little bit of staging, could be really. Here's my example. I've sold a lot of my own properties, and I've staged them myself, right? And I've been able to charge so much more than other people with the same house. Like, I'm in a townhouse, so it's the same house, right? But mine, has been staged, and we've had problems several different times having it appraised because the purchase price was so high. It didn't make sense compared to the other sales. So we had to kind of finesse that, but it has been all about how you present the property, how you take the photos. There can't be a load of dirty clothes on the floor when you take your photos, and you can't have the toilet seat up. I mean, it's a lot of small kind of things that you can do to enhance the photos, which then enhance the perception of value. That's just how it is. The psychology of working with the buyer is fascinating, because you can tell the moment they make a decision to buy, because they're looking around and they stop. And then they start saying, well, my couch could go over there, and I could put the bookcase right here. And then, they're ready to buy the house. They've moved in emotionally. So, as an agent, you're walking around watching for that. When you place your furniture, I'm gonna pull out my contract and we're gonna get it done.
Nice.
And it works very similarly with the way you put together your, okay. I'm sorry.
It went out again.
I don't even know what is going on. It's like there's a battery failing or something, but I have the battery plugged in.
Okay, you're back.
Okay, I apologize.
No worries.
But it works very similarly when people are looking at your listing, like on Airbnb. You know, you got to have your first 5 photos, got to stop them. And they've got to say, okay, look at that. I can see us all, you know, sitting on this couch. I can see us in front of this fireplace, whatever. I can see us in this backyard. Once they start seeing themselves there.
Because we have a friend of the show, Shannon, and he has a place in Shreveport, and he had these professional pictures made, right? And he and on picture number 25 or 27, he had I was looking to him, just making sure everything was good, because I kind of mentoring him how to get his start in Airbnb short-term rentals. And on like picture number 27, I was like, dang, you got a really nice patio with really nice patio furniture, got a nice cover. How come it's way back here? And he's like, oh, I don't know. I just, put the pictures that way, how they sent me, on the thing. I just put them like that. I was like, dude.
No. You got to sequence your pictures. The
Yeah.
whole thing has to be thought through. You got to do a tour of the house. You got to have, your first 5, and then you got to walk people through, room by room in a way that makes sense so they understand the flow of the house. There's a whole,
feng shui.
If people knew, if people knew, what really goes into it or what could go into it, you spend a lot more time on your listing and your staging and your lighting, and you'd spend a lot more time because you'd make a lot more money, on the other end. It would be worth it. It would be worth it.
Oh, big time. So I said, let's try this. I said, put that, because he wouldn't get no bookings. I said, put that patio picture as your first picture, the big, and then you have your other 4 that are right there. And just try it out. And he, like, I swear, like, that later that day, he got a long booking. I don't know, or similar long, 7-8 days, whatever. Nice. And he said, yeah, I'm coming to town for this. I just saw that patio and I just pictured us out there hanging out, barbecuing and all this stuff. They had a barbecue out there too. And he, like you said, they pictured themselves on that patio, doing, because that you're telling a story, right? And so I thought that was cool, man. Because you show your what sets you apart, your accessories and stuff like that.
Yep, that's how it goes. I mean, that's how it goes. That's what you have to do to tell the story and to convey, the feelings and the experience that the people are going to have. That's how you do it.
Nice. Yeah. So you have a big expo coming up?
I have a big summit coming up.
A summit? Okay.
Yes, a summit. It's going to be a virtual summit. It's for women, but I'm equal opportunity. So anybody who is interested, I'm going to have, I think, 24 speakers. We're going to do some live segments. We're going to have a wellness segment. We're going to have a pajama party. We're going to do a lot of fun things because life's too short. You got to have fun wherever you can. And but I'm going to be teaching. I'm going to be overcoming some of the objections that I hear a lot about people who would consider hosting, but who are afraid or worried about the safety, or worried about somebody in their bed and the whole thing. We're going to take you through so that you overcome those objections, so that you start to see yourself as a short-term or mid-term rental host. And we take you from where you are now to where you can begin the actual process of hosting. So that's going to be March 7th through the 9th. It's free. I will have some upgrades available, some just extra stuff, some swag bag stuff that'll be available. And it's going to be called the Home Share Side Hustle Summit.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, is it mostly for women, or is it for anybody?
I mean, anybody can come, but I focus on women because I feel like I can speak to some of the aspects of hosting that are, related to women. Like one time I had, 6 burly Navy SEALs show up as my guests, and I was like, okay, here they are, and and. So I feel like I can relate better to some of the fears women might have with hosting. So I primarily focus on women, but I will teach anybody how to host. I want everybody to learn how to do it.
That's what's up.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll tell my wife about it. She should.
Oh yeah.
Never know. I might be in there in my PJs too. We'll see.
I'm gonna have what is it, Pam's Jammy Jam. So so come on.
Little wine going on.
Yeah.
drink.
I'm looking for a wine sponsor right now. I'm like, let's just have a good time. Let's get you the information, but let's not make it overwhelming. Let's just, relax. I got you.
You need a
Let's just do
vodka
it.
sponsor, holla at me. I got one.
Okay. Okay.
You gonna go in there jumping around up and down like Tony Robbins or what?
I'm kind of low key. I don't know if I could do all that. I'm more of the wine glass type, but who knows? I don't, I can't make any promises that I won't jump around. I don't know.
Yeah,
if that's what it takes, whatever it takes.
You got a real soothing, jazzy voice.
I'm just, I'm low key. I'm low key Pam. That's it.
Low key Pam.
Mm-hmm.
Doing big things, low key Pam.
Just, low key.
Well, awesome. Aside from that, where can people find you, Pam?
I have a website, pamholt.com. I'm trying to keep it simple for everybody. I have a freebie that if you are thinking about becoming a host, is this backwards? I don't know.
No.
No. Okay. I've got this guide for you. It'll take you through some mindset questions. It'll take you through potential earnings. I've done a chart, like depending on where you are in the country, kind of the average nightly rental amount. I've got a list of amenities that you need to start off with, and a bunch of other things that if you're kind of on the fence or kind of just thinking about it, get the guide, start there, come to the conference, get a glass of wine. Let's just chop it up. Damn it.
The camera just went out again for those that are listening.
I'm sorry.
Camera issues. No, we curse on this show sometimes.
Okay.
But damn, it's not really a curse word. But yeah,
yeah,
we say some bad ones. I think Apple has us as explicit lyrics. So yeah, we keep it real, Pam.
Hey, I'm okay with that.
It's so great to have you on, and what it's always great to have a woman come on and from the women's perspective in this industry. And the crazy thing is, there's so many women that are doing this, and so many minorities that are doing this. We got into both topics, and to me, I think the city would really embrace something like that. That's so diverse, like a business that's come about that's so diverse as a minority. All ethnicities are doing it, all genders are doing it, and it's a shame that they aren't embracing it more. But those old stogies are going to be gone pretty soon anyways, and we'll
I've offered to set up an educational platform for them. So if they want to teach people how to do it right, they just need to call me, and we can do this. We can learn how to do it well. It can be all good.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Pam. We look forward to the summit. We look forward to having you on again.
Where can they get the mindset guidebook?
Oh, well, that's on my website, pamholt.com. It'll pop up as a pop-up. Yeah. Gotcha. Thank you very much. It's been fun. I've been watching, from the background for a long time. So I'm glad to finally get to meet you guys and chop it up a little bit.
It's always good to hear that people that listen to us, even with our explicit rating, they continue to listen to us. So thank you for being along.
I'm not scared.
Thank you, Pam.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye. That was a good episode. I love the perspective, a lot of different perspectives in this short-term rental space.
Yeah. Touched on some heavy topics.
Yeah, we did.
But in a nice way. Yeah, we kept it real, but why go out there and pretend? We it's good to talk about the hard things to talk about. A lot of shows might stay away from that stuff, but we hit it straight on, head on.
Yeah, that's why we have the explicit, because we talk about it all, man. We talk about it all. We go in the places that most people don't go, So it is what it is, and we ain't no what do they call it? No surface level shit. We talk about what really goes on.
I'm not trying to call Apple iTunes out or whatever for tagging us with that, but I know a lot of shows that ain't so colorful like us that don't have that tag, and they cuss on there. So I don't know.
Are you talking about Joe Rogan? Now playing?
Not that one. He's on Spotify now. But there are shows out there that they do cuss, and they're not as colorful as us. I'll just say that, and they don't get hit with that tag. So,
yeah,
thanks, Apple. Thanks, Apple.
We see what you're doing. As colorful as us.
Fight the power.
Yeah, there you go. Fight the powers that be.
Well, this has been another great episode, man. 279 in the books. Where can people find us, Mike?
Find us on Instagram, TikTok. Send us an email, info@liveletthrive.com, Myka@liveletthrive.com, Steve@liveletthrive.com. And thank you for continuing to being a listener. And make sure y'all hitting that subscribe button below. Hit that subscribe button, join our email list, all that good stuff. Hit our link tree. Man, and thank y'all for continuing to listen. We are.
Oh, share. Share us all about,
Yo.
Got to take the power back.
There you go.
Live, let, thrive out.
Yeah, y'all go to Apple and complain. Tell them to get rid of that explicit shit.
Bullshit. Soccer mom turning down the. No, soccer moms are cool. They love us.
They're probably slapping their kids. But yeah.
Put on Myka and Steve. All right, y'all. See y'all on the flip.
Peace.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Live, Let, Thrive. Be sure to tune in next week for all the latest in the world of Airbnb and all that entails. Bye-bye.